Hello, this is Claudia
Mercedes.
Christopher.
ELNORRIS.
from High School Innovation Labs at the New York Public Library, and we're recording this interview with Kirk Washington for the New York Public Library Community Oral History Project's Neighborhood Collection on Hell's Kitchen. It is July 21st, 2016, and this is being recorded at the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. So how's your day going today?
Oh, great. Now that you all are here. Thank you for asking.
So what's it like working and being like in this type of facility?
It's great. This is something that is a real interesting situation because we have this in our community because of the company Time Warner. When they decided to put cable into our communities, this was like a handshake that they would give the community back something. And this is a place where people that live in the public, such as yourselves, and older people can come and they can write, produce stories, plays, anything that has to do in a show form, you know, like a comedy or drama or variety show, and they can have all the means to be able to facilitate a production, and then after the production is done, your show gets aired on Time Warner. So it's great.
How long have you been working in this kind of business?
Can we stop? I'm sorry. Oh God. Now you're gonna get me to tell my age. I would say probably now going on 50 years.
What are some plays that you've seen being recorded here?
Plays, well, I did one called The Revolving Door that was written by a very talented writer. You know, I'm also an artist myself, an actor. So being a producer, it's very challenging to shoot different projects because they're not all alike. Mm-hmm. So I just happened to be referred to this producer, and I got a chance to shoot a full-out play, and it was really exciting.
Is it hard working in this type of business?
Yes. Very.
Why?
Why? Because I would say it's hard, it's great, fantastic and amazing and all the above. But this industry has a lot of different jobs. That's what's so amazing about this field. And you get a chance to kind of see where you fit, what you like, how it works, and then you cross that bridge, or rather you come to that point of making a commitment. You know what I mean? There's so many jobs in this profession and in the entertainment industry. So, you know, you get a chance to kind of bump around, and I think that's amazing. It's almost like sort of kind of like living in New York where things constantly change and nothing stays the same. So I think that's a good thing, but you have to have the mindset for it, you know?
You said you've been working in this field for about like 50 years. So was this a career choice at a young age, or like did this like just come about?
Well, yeah, I guess it is a career choice at a young age because my mother was my inspiration, and she was my first artist that I saw, and I had the luxury of having her at home. And when it all started, she was a piano teacher, and she played in church for the choir. And when she would practice at home, I would go to the piano, and every time she was at the piano, I was too small to have the piano keyboard right in front of me. So I'd be tinkling at the end, and she got tired of it, and she said to me one day, okay, you're going to take piano lessons. So that's what kicked it off.
What were some of your favorite moments in this business, like during the plays and everything else?
Well, I would say the favorite moments would be, of course, starting out in the industry. I started out as an extra. One of my first jobs was Lady Sings the Blues. And Diana Ross was always like an idol of mine. And, you know, at that time, you're so young. I was so young. I looked up. I knew that I was on a movie set. And I looked up and I looked at this lady, and she looked like Diana Ross. And I went up to her and I said, you know, you look just like Diana Ross. And she said, really? You know, and that's like one of them. I've had a chance and opportunity to work with so many great people in the industry. Some people that you probably would not be aware of. But yeah, you know, like Red Fox, oh my God. When I was growing up in the industry, people, I would say, Robert Young, Marcus Welby. You know, I did a couple of those episodes. A Kojak, Telly Savalas. You know, these are people that you probably heard of. You might see on some of those Get TV channels now, you know, where they play the old series back and forth or whatever. But I've had a lot of great times. And yes, I can say I've had a first. Before me, I'm the first African American on the Kellogg's Cornflake box. Before me, there was a rooster.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. And can you explain to me how you felt when you first actually produced your first production?
Over the moon. Yeah, because, you know, when you work in the industry, you're like sitting sideline. I mean, if you come in as an actor, you know, you show up, you know that you're there to do your part, but there's so many things going on. They don't always call you right away, and they're setting up sets, and they have to do sometimes scenes before they do your scene or whatever. So it's just, it's really interesting, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
How did that come about to be you being the first African American man to be on the Kellogg's box?
God. And a great producer that saw me. I was doing, I went for the interview just like everybody else, and they picked me to do the commercial. And while I was doing the commercial, the director came over to me and said, you know, he spoke to my mother, of course, because I was underage. And he says, I want to do something special for you. And we looked at each other and we couldn't imagine what it was. And he says, I want to put your face on the box. And we didn't know what to say.
How do you feel about the neighborhood?
The neighborhood, Hell's Kitchen. Oh my God, I've lived in the neighborhood for about 17 years. I love it. I love it. There's so much to do in Hell's Kitchen. There's so much to do in New York, but just particularly talking about Hell's Kitchen, it's very close to my heart. I am very, very strong about certain issues. You know, living in Hell's Kitchen, I learned to mandate certain issues, which sprung the activism in my heart. I'm behind the affordable housing. I got behind a lot of health issues that I saw that were necessary in my community, such as HIV/AIDS, breast cancer, all the different marathons. And that's one thing that I love about New York is that they've got a day for everybody. But I saw that as a human being, when I walk out my door and I see the homelessness, and I see young people, it breaks my heart.
You've lived here for a while, you said. So, have you seen the area evolve into and if you did or didn't, would you say it evolves for the better or the worse?
For the better. For the better. I'm an optimist. And I have to believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you know. Yeah, because when I first came to New York, it was in the early 80s. And Hell's Kitchen was looking a bit seedy, yeah. You know, Times Square, you know, the red light district. But they've cleaned it up a lot. One thing that really, really saddens me is that I understand with the tourism, and tourism is a great thing for us. Even during the 9/11 situation, I'm a 9/11 survivor as well. It's nice when we have tourism, but I think that the people that live here and work very hard to maintain, to get by, such as myself. And it's sad when people live in the community and they end up not being able to afford the community, you know. So as I've lived in Hell's Kitchen, I've watched it developing and the whole bit. And it breaks my heart when big developers come in and we end up with no places to live or we're being priced out because we can't afford the big luxury high rises. And I believe that if they're building all those type of things, they should include us in them.
What are some of your favorite places in Hell's Kitchen that you like to visit?
Food would be one. Food would be one. Oh my God. You know, it has a lot of different districts where I lived. There's the restaurant district, the restaurant row rather. There is the garment district. The diamond district is not too far. You know, I love all these different districts. You know what I mean? I just get lost because it's always something to do in New York. You know, if you can't find something to do in New York, something's wrong with you.
So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from California, Los Angeles, California.
So what made you come to New York?
Being an artist, I needed to evolve. I felt like I was creatively kind of starving a little bit because our way of life on the West Coast is not like the way of life here. But I've always had that part of the East Coast flavor around in my mindset because I used to dance on this show called Soul Train. So we were always feeling the East Coast vibe, you know what I mean? And then the East Coast people would come to the West Coast. And New York always intrigued me. And I said to myself, I'm going to New York. So I'm here.
So what would you say the difference is from the West Coast to the East Coast, in your opinion?
Lifestyles. Of course, the weather, you know. But people are people wherever you go in the world. And they're great people everywhere.
What are you most proud of?
Being in the now in my life. I think the most important thing to us all is to be realistic about who you are, where you are in the world, the choices that you make in the world, and being honest to yourself. You know, when you look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, you know, am I happy? Is this going the way that I think it should go? And if you're able to ask those questions to yourself, and you're able to not be so hard on yourself, and you're willing to answer those questions, and if you're not happy, make changes, to me, that's being in the now. being in the now, such a like what we're doing right now, the most important thing to me now is to be here and to be receptive to what you're sharing with me. You know what I mean? But yeah, that would be it. It's being in the now of my life.
And what would you say were the most biggest decisions to put you where you are now?
Could you ask that
Again?
again? I mean, I'm not really understanding.
What are one of the biggest decisions you have to make to become who you are today? What made you who you are? You know, the decisions you had to go through.
Just being real. Like they say, just keeping it real. Yeah, you know, because we say sometimes things to ourselves to appease ourselves. And when I say that, it sounds good if we say it this way. It sounds better if you do it that way. But it doesn't really matter. It is what it is. And if it is what it is, then you make the most of it. And if you see a situation and it might not be the best, you do what you can to make it better. You know, but either way, life goes on.
If you don't mind, could you tell us a bit about your personal life?
Sure. I mean, I'm 54. I'm young. I'm single, and I love to mingle. I'm an artist. I don't deny myself in life. If there are things that I'm striving for, like I said, and we were talking about being in the now, I have to ask myself a series of questions. Well, I have to draw from the best inspiration in my life when I go through those scenarios. My mother was an educator. She was a teacher, and she started teaching me very young, you know, working and at a very early age. You want to buy things. You think you can just go out and buy things because you want to or whatever. And I would ask my mother sometimes when we'd be out and we'd be window shopping, and I'd say, "Oh, well, Mom, you know how kids are. They see something, they want it in an instant." And she said, "Well, you like that?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Well, you know what? You have to earn that because Mommy can't buy you that." So, you know, you start hearing those type of things. It makes you wonder, well, what's going on? Maybe I need to be a little more responsible, or maybe I need to get a clue about how things work. It taught me independence, and independence is king. Independence is king, especially for young people. You know what I mean? You not having to feel like you have to wait for people to do things for you. You know what I mean? It's great when you're young to get out and to be active in your community. You know, you can do charity situations, you can do things to earn money, but I think with young people, it's always good to be engaged, doing something positive. There's an old saying when it comes to older people, yes, I'm one of them. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. They didn't say that for no reason.
What was one of the difficult things you had to face to become a producer?
To become a producer, being responsible. Because a producer is the one that's watching the overall. You know what I mean? Who's the talent? What's the story? Who are the writers? What's the script? You know, does everybody have this? Does everybody have that? Who's doing the hair? Who's doing the makeup? Did the guys do the lights right? What about the sound? You know, is everything in focus? You know, and the producer is the one that sits back and has the mechanism for timing, because the producer is the keeper of time. And I executive produce, so I'm watching everything from the time it starts to the time it finishes. I'm the first one here. I'm the last one to go.
How does it feel to be in charge?
Well, yes, it would be called classified being in charge, but it's shared situation. Nobody does anything by themselves. We all would like to think so, but I came in this being a people person. There's an old song, people need people. They didn't say that for no reason. And you would be surprised when we come together as a collective, what we can accomplish.
What do you see yourself doing in the next 10 years?
Retiring, living on a beach somewhere. No.
Is there one specific person that you just love to work with and would want to keep doing like more films with?
Oh God, that's a hard one. There are a lot. I would have to say, in that context, it would be a lot of people that I look up to, and whether they're present or not. Of course, we have people that of them being around, we would love to work with because we've seen their work, but I kind of look at it and I kind of hold it all in my heart, from the people that I've worked with, the people that came before them, the people that are around now, and the new people that come on. You're blessed if you get a chance to work with some of the greats and what have you, but you have their legacy. You have their legacy. What did they do? What did they bring? What did they share? You know what I mean? And you then look at yourself. It gives you inspiration, and you learn to go forward, and we draw from each other. So I'm good. After that, I'm good.
If you could talk to your younger self coming into New York and being and being a producer, like, what would you tell yourself?
Get a job.
If you could describe all your productions and your progression in one word, what would you use?
Fierce.
Like, what advice would you give someone trying to, pursue the same career as you're pursuing? Like a newcomer, like, what would you tell them?
Get a job. Study your craft. It's one thing to look at something or a situation and admire it. It's another thing to say to yourself, oh, wow, this is what I want to do. And then the other side of that is making a commitment and following through.
Now, to my previous questions, why would you say fierce?
Fierce. In regards to myself, because it took a lot. When I think about my humble beginnings, it took a lot to get from point A to here. My mother was my greatest inspiration. She decided on things that she wanted to do, and she did them. I learned a lot from her by just being in my mother's company. It wasn't that she always had to tell me to do this or tell me to do that. It just seemed like I just fell in like clockwork. It's so funny. One day I was at home and I cook, and I had to ask myself, I was like, my God, how did I learn how to cook? I never took a cooking class or anything like that. And it was having conversations in the kitchen with my mother. Or, you know what? It could have been because I was in the kitchen, I was being disciplined. You know what I mean? But I had to still be in the kitchen, so I watched my mother. I design handbags and stuff like that. I want to push myself to start going into designing clothes. But how did I learn? My mother was a seamstress, and I used to look at her cut out patterns. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do that, but I was so determined to make a pair of pants. Somehow I put it together in my head, and I said, I'm going to make these pair of pants. And I thought about it, being logical about it, and I took an old pair of pants and took it apart from the seams, and I cut a new pattern to it, and I sold it up. And guess what? I wore them to school, and I got compliments on it. So I was like, whoa, I can do this.
What was your childhood like?
My childhood like? Well, when you're working in the industry as a kid, you grow up fast. You grow up very fast. I could identify Sideline with Michael Jackson, because sometimes you can be working so much that you really don't have a childhood. I don't know what it was to have his childhood, but he was still one of the greats in my eyes. Just because we see people sideline, that tells you nothing about the person, you know what I mean? But the legacy is still there.
What were some of the worst moments you faced as a producer?
When people back out of you or back out on you, or they don't show up.
How do people take rejection?
Not well. And the thing about it, if you're interested in being in this business, you have to develop a tough skin. Because you're going to hear it from the day one. From day one. Oh, you're not the right type. Your hair is parted the wrong way. We were looking for someone that had their hair parted 50 other million ways. I got it all when I was coming up in the industry. Oh, well, you're not. Could you sound a little more black? Whatever you could think of between one ear and the other, believe me, they'll tell you.
Was it hard coming up in the industry being, Black, African American?
Yes, sadly to say. Because when I started in the industry, it wasn't glamorous to be Black. And then also, too, you had to be more than the Caucasian partners. You had to be more than the Caucasian actors. You had to be a triple threat. I came up in the days of Sammy Davis Jr. As a kid. He was the bar. If you couldn't dance, sing, or act, don't even think about showing up.
So did you feel like you always had to put a little bit more effort than the others?
I always did feel that way, and I still feel that way.
So you think the problems back then, as being in your career, is still going on now?
Yeah, but you're gonna always have life challenges. You know what I mean? You can't get to a point where you feel like the whole world is just picking on you. You have to get to the point in your life where you turn that around. Everybody has something great that they bring to the table. And once you realize that, because that affects your self-esteem, once you realize that you have something to share too, then concentrate and pull that energy and develop you. And believe you me, you'll see a whole different way.
How do you walk away from people and all the stuff that they have to say about you?
Very fast.
Would you say that you have built your own self-confidence because you were aware of these things, or has it always been strong?
No, it wasn't always strong. Yes, it is a building process, which is the building of the tough skin, because you just have to have to get out of the I am a victim zone. We all have challenges. You're going to have challenges. You were born into challenges. There were going to be challenges while we're alive, and guess what? When we're not here anymore, there's still going to be challenges. That's nothing new. You making the personal choice to turn it around and illuminate some positivity in the choices that you make on how to deal with it will change your life.
Is there anyone else who motivated you besides your mother?
My father. My father.
And how did he motivate you?
His presence, his demeanor. I was blessed to have him, and I lost him at the age of 5. But he is also one of my greatest inspirations. He served in the military. He was a chaplain. And I'm also blessed because I also have 2 fathers. You know, I had one who raised me, and I have a biological one who's still alive.
I'm sorry for your loss, and thank you. You said in the industry you have to learn how to dance, sing, and act. Do you have a little note you want to sing to us, or a little dance number you want to show us?
I'll share with you a bit of my song that I'm working on. That's a standard that happens to be a motto of my, my motto. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. For the Bible says, and it still is news, your mama may have, and Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own.
That was amazing. Thank you.
I don't know.
Don't be embarrassed.
Did the loss of your father make you want to just go harder?
Yeah, because it was my first experience with death. And I had to turn that around too, because I was like, I'm of a spiritual base, Christian belief, but I embrace all religions spiritually, and I was just trying to process it. I was like, wait a minute, God is love. And if he loves me so much, why is he taking my father? So, a kid at 5, you can't wrap your mind around it.
Have you ever had doubts in your religion, and has anyone tried to change your mind?
Yeah. You have doubts, and I still chalk them up to life challenges. I'm faith first. So, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You know what I mean? And I grew up in a very spiritual family, and I realized that you never, ever want to lose sight of hope. You never want to lose sight of the light at the end of the tunnel. When we're young, we don't understand a lot of things, but sometimes you have to relax, be patient, and also learn to listen. I always was around older people, because that was just my household. And I guess with feeling comfortable with it, I migrated to older people, what have you. And I always had respect for elders because that was the way that I was raised, which is, I think, a fantastic and amazing thing. Being young if you don't realize this in your life with older people are here for a reason too, because they have been where you're trying to go. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science. And when you see older people than you are, and they have learned to live, and they learn to be happy because it's an acquired thing. You know what I mean? You have to live it to get there. So just be patient. Don't be too hard on yourself. And you will learn to live and be happy too.
I know you said earlier that Hell's Kitchen is close to your heart. Why would you say that?
Well, because for the main fact that I live there, and I'm engaged into the community actively, meaning that I go out in my activism and I help people. You know, I see a lot of those ads and stuff on TV where there are things happening all across the world right now, and I'm not a hater, but if I'm gonna support, I'm gonna send my money, I'm gonna help the people that are right in front of me.
Do you believe that if there's a will, there's a way?
Yes, most definitely. Without your will, you have nothing.
Thank you. You have been very inspiring. Thank you for your time and patience, and we're so glad we got to meet with you.
Thank you all for making and carving out some time in your day to be here to share with me. It's a shared experience. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a picture because we were in the
my camera.
Can we all take a picture together?
We can take one together, and then I'm gonna.